The wind was howling so loud that night it rattled the loose siding on my garage. I'd been watching the news all evening. High winds, dropping temperatures, the kind of storm that made you double-check every lock and window. I was just about to head to bed when I heard it, a faint, muffled whining. At first, I thought it was the wind playing tricks on me. But then it came again, sharper this time, like it was right outside my door. I opened the back door, the cold immediately cutting through my sweater. And there, huddled near the corner of my garage, was a dog. Medium-sized, fur-matted, shivering so hard his teeth chattered audibly. I didn't think twice. I stepped outside and crouched down, speaking softly, trying not to startle him. His eyes, dark and wary, flicked between my face and the open door of the garage. "Come on, buddy," I said, motioning. "It's warmer inside." To my relief, he followed, paws crunching on the icy ground. Once inside, I closed the door behind us and dug out an old blanket from a storage bin. I set it down in the corner. He circled it twice, then lay down, still watching me. I filled an old mixing bowl with water, and he drank like he hadn't seen water in days. I figured he'd rest there for the night, and I'd call the local shelter in the morning. But when I came back at dawn, he wasn't alone. I froze in the doorway, the cold morning air rushing in behind me. The dog was still on the blanket, but now there were 3 tiny shapes curled against his belly. Puppies so small their eyes weren't even open yet. Their fur was damp, probably from the snow outside, and they squirmed weakly, trying to find warmth. The dog, I realized now, lifted her head and looked at me. Her gaze wasn't fearful anymore. It was something else, almost pleading. She had carried them here, in the middle of the storm. I knelt down slowly, not wanting to scare her. She didn't move away when I reached toward the puppies, though she kept her head close, watching every motion. They were tiny, probably only a week old, maybe less. I couldn't imagine them surviving another night outside. "Well," I whispered, "looks like you've all just moved in." I spent the morning lining a large cardboard box with old towels and blankets, setting it in the warmest corner of the garage. I even plugged in a small space heater a few feet away, careful not to put it too close. The mother dog, I started calling her Daisy, watched silently as I worked, occasionally glancing down at her pups as if counting them. That day, I realized this wasn't going to be a simple, overnight guest situation. The next morning, I printed out a few found dog flyers and taped them around the neighborhood. I also posted her picture, along with the puppies, in a couple of local Facebook groups. Within hours, comments started flooding in. Most were just, "How cute," or "Thank you for helping her," but no one came forward to claim her. I called the local animal shelter, but they were at capacity and said they could only take her if I surrendered her permanently. I wasn't ready for that, not until I knew she and the pups were safe. In the meantime, Daisy settled into the garage as though it had always been hers. She barely left the puppy's side, except to lap up the food and water I brought. On the 3rd day, I noticed something I'd missed before. Beneath her tangled fur, there was a thin strip of worn leather, a collar, almost hidden. It took some coaxing, but she let me slide my fingers under and unclasp it. The leather was cracked, and the small brass tag was scratched almost beyond recognition. But I could still make out part of an address. It wasn't in my neighborhood. It wasn't even in my town. It was over 30 miles away. Early the next day, I packed a bag with supplies, food, water, blankets, and loaded Daisy and the puppies into my car. The drive was quiet, the road stretching long and empty through the cold morning fog. When I reached the address, I found a small, run-down farmhouse surrounded by fields dusted with frost. The front porch was sagging, and the paint peeled in long strips. No cars, no signs of life, just the wind and the occasional crow calling in the distance. I knocked on the door, waited. No answer. I tried the handle, unlocked. Inside, the house smelled of old wood and memories. Dust coated the furniture, and sunlight streamed through cracked windows, casting long shadows. On a dusty table in the kitchen, I spotted an old photo frame. A woman smiling beside a dog that looked remarkably like Daisy. I ran my fingers over the picture, a chill running down my spine. Something about this place felt like a story waiting to be uncovered. In the corner of the living room, I found a worn leather journal. The pages were yellowed and filled with neat, flowing handwriting. The entries told the story of a woman named Evelyn, who had lived here with her husband and their beloved dog, Daisy. The last entry was dated just a few months before the house was abandoned. Evelyn wrote about her husband's sudden illness, how she struggled to care for him and the dog, and finally, how she had to leave everything behind when the hospital called with devastating news. That evening, I called the local historical society and was connected with Evelyn's daughter, who still lived in town. She told me how her mother had to leave in a hurry and how Daisy disappeared shortly after. She'd been searching for the dog ever since, but never gave up hope. When I told her about finding Daisy and the puppies, her voice cracked with relief and gratitude. "We thought she was lost forever," she said. I promised to keep the family updated, feeling like this was more than just rescuing a stray. It was reuniting a broken story.